If you really enjoy making content, then that's like itself something to care about and like to work towards as well. So I think that's one of the things that I've really liked about making content.
Yeah, I love that so much. Finding like what the unique thing about you is like could be pretty challenging.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just like something you discover just by trying different things out. If you just like don't hold yourself back and just posting content, you will be more likely to just stumble across something that you are unique at and be able to like create content around that and sort of carve out your own identity.
Awesome. Leon, it's great to see you.
Yeah, great to see you as well.
Cool. So you're a founder, you're an engineer, and now you're a tech content creator.
Yeah.
And you grew from what, 0 to 75K or so?
Yeah, pretty much.
In 4 or 5 months?
Yeah, around the much, yeah.
That is insane. That is like one of the fastest growing like Instagram accounts for tech, right? Like
I'm not entirely sure. I don't really know that much about like how fast, but it was definitely a lot faster than I expected. And like I know a friend who was a content creator, he was also surprised by how fast I grew. So definitely above average, I'd say. Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely this is abnormal. Right?
Yeah, I think so as well.
I would love for you to like, you know, for a lot of the audience here who doesn't know you yet, right?
Yeah.
Can you introduce yourself, like who you are, right? And what's your background and
yeah, so my name's Leon. Funny enough, my full name is Leon C, which is where I got my handle from, like Leon, and then C stands for Silicon. So it's like Leon Silicon. It's like a play on my full name. I started.
Wait, your last name is actually Silicon?
No, my last name is SI, which is like the element for silicon. Yeah.
Oh, wait. I actually didn't know that was your actual last name. I thought you were just like, you just.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
No, my last name isn't like silicon, the word itself, but it's just those 2 letters. And then that stands for silicon. But it's like a fun play on my name. But yeah, so basically I was basically learning programming in high school. That's when I started. I attended a lot of hackathons. There was a friend who introduced me to my first one. And then like, I think that year I went on to like attend 27 hackathons and like won 17 of them because it was just really fun, like building stuff. I really enjoyed building a lot of like cool shit. That's why I kind of got into programming. And then took the time in grade 11, grade 12 to like work on a full-time project on my like own, like a side project-ish.
Yeah.
And like learned a lot, just became a really good developer by then.
How old were you when you started coding?
So I started coding like pretty young, but I'd say it was more just like playing around. Like my dad just showed me how to, you know, write text in a notepad file and right click open as HTML to just see like that you can build stuff just writing text. But I really got into it around like grade 8, grade 9, high school-ish.
How old is that?
So I think it's like 13, 14.
13,
Yeah.
14.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which is fairly young. I know there's some people who are like, you know, been coding since they were like, you know, like a baby or some shit. But I don't think I'm there. I'm like necessarily like that early. But yeah, it was yeah. So in high school, spent all this time like becoming a better programmer, and so that's how I kind of got into entrepreneurship. Because at these hackathons, a lot of like the people that would sponsor them are like startups, and like a lot of talks would be like about people starting their own thing. And so I got into startups and entrepreneurship around like later in high school, and then. So I really wanted to go after high school into a top university in the US because, you know, the entrepreneurship opportunities in the US are like so much more like big and like,
yeah.
Yeah.
And what part of Canada are you from?
I'm from Toronto.
Toronto?
Yeah. So funny enough, I got actually rejected from like all the US universities. And
what was your dream school?
Dream school was Stanford. Yeah. Okay. I like really wanted to go to Stanford, but didn't get in, obviously.
Did you also apply to MIT?
I did. I applied to like basically the top 12 like CS schools at the time.
Wow. That's a lot of essays.
It was a lot of essays. I procrastinated on it, and that was probably my biggest mistake. I also wasn't good at writing, so it didn't end up well for me. I got rejected. And then instead of deciding to go to Canadian University, because I did get into Waterloo, and at the time I didn't really see Waterloo as like that good of a school. Nowadays I kind of have a different opinion, but back then I like really wanted to go to school in the US. I decided to take a gap year. And then during that gap year, the idea was, I'd spend this gap year like rebuilding up my resume, like getting more experience so that the next year I would reapply and get into one of these schools. But then during the gap year, what ended up happening was I was working on a side project with like 2 friends I met in the US through an online hackathon. And then we ended up getting to NEO, the NEO Accelerator.
And what was the idea?
The idea, it started off as a pair programming marketplace where we'd connect you with like a mentor that helps you debug your programming bugs. But then we pivoted it into like an internal tool for like sharing and collaboration, because I think when I was doing that idea, one of the things I was frustrated about was having to help people over Zoom calls. It was really hard to just tell people like, hey, change this line of code, like do this, do that, all through voice. And I just built this like internal tool to help me debug other people's products faster by having them like share a link to that I can like access on my local computer. And then my friends realized that this was just so much of a better idea than the initial like marketplace idea. And so we pivoted to that, and that's what we applied to NEO with. And it was this tool that let you kind of create a URL for your local website that you can share with your friends or like teammates to get feedback and have them collaborate on it.
And for the audience who doesn't know what Neo is, what is Neo?
Yeah, so Neo is like an accelerator. I think the most common way I'd explain it is like the old YC is what they're trying to be. They have like,
the old one.
yeah, like back when YC was like really small batches, that's what they're trying to do now. It's like basically have this like smaller batch that each company in the accelerator has like more individualized attention. It's like an accelerator similar to YC, but like smaller in scope in terms of how many people they accept.
And for the audience who doesn't know, YC is the best accelerator. The top accelerator.
Yeah, it's been the most successful by far. Like they have the best track record. They've been around like the longest, I imagine. I think, yeah, something like that.
Did you try to apply to YC?
We actually did. We applied to like a bunch of accelerators. We did get an interview for YC, but I think Neo sort of like tried to fast track us. So like they they wanted us to like accept the offer before we got a chance to interview with YC. I think back then we like saw the focus of Neo like focusing on technical founders, like technical like leadership kind of thing, and so that interested us as all developers. We were building a dev tool, so at the time it made more sense for us to kind of just like go with Neo. They also had better terms, so yeah, we just decided to just get
Neo has
the offer.
Superior terms.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think they kind of have to, right? Otherwise, it's like it's not as much of a convincing factor.
Very interesting.
Yeah,
cool.
Yeah.
And so what happened after that?
Yeah, so then after getting to Neo, I'm like, okay, wait, so like I'm going to work on the startup full time. And initially the plan was, like I'd go back to university. But then I thought to myself, if I had went to university, what I would have wanted to do was drop out and create a startup and get into Accelerator, right? So then at that point, I'm realizing, yeah, so then if I already gone to Neo, I probably don't need to go back to school. So I just decided like not to go to university at all and just work full time on the startup for a year and a half with my two friends. And yeah, that's sort of the story for my startup era in a sense. And then, yeah.
And that was last year?
That was
2023 or?
Yeah, so I got into Neo like May 2023, so just over a year ago, and yeah, we worked on that like until like recently. Like, this May, I winded down the company because I kind of didn't see it going anywhere, and then decided to join a different startup in the end. But it was a great experience. I like learned a lot about like starting a company, about engineering. So like no regrets from my end for sure.
Absolutely, yeah, of course. Like the startup experience is, I mean, it's very high risk, high reward type of thing, right?
Yeah.
Even if you fail, you kind of feel outwards too.
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
Definitely, I'm a startup founder myself, so I have to be biased about that.
Yeah.
Okay, so going to your content creator journey, right? So when did you start creating content?
Yeah, it was really interesting. In the Neo Accelerator, I met a friend in the same batch. He was working on a company, and he basically had this big following already on like TikTok and Instagram, where he was just posting videos about AI. And
who is that?
This is Justin Feinberg. I'm not sure if you've heard of him, but he was just like he's building Castate AI, which is like an AI company that helps like enterprise companies use AI with their internal data. And he was getting like a lot of inbound from like his social media like presence. And I'm like, wait, this is like sick. And he was like, we were trying to find ways to grow a ton at the time, get the word out with marketing. And he kind of gave me advice to like, just try to start creating content yourself as a developer. He thought I could be like a good content creator. And I'm like, wait, why not? Let's give it a shot. Like, there's nothing to lose, right? So I just started posting out videos, I think back in March of this year.
And that was after or before you wind down your...
That was before, yeah. So I wound down the company like 3 months ago. So March, I was like still working on it full time with my two co-founders.
So did you start because you wanted to also like get more leads for your...
Exactly. Like, I think the initial goal was like to grow an audience. And then once I had a big enough audience, I'd like, share my startup so that we'd get a lot of like inbound people trying it out, giving feedback. Because it was like really hard to get the word out back at the time. And so the initial goal was to like, try like promoting the startup, but not like explicitly at the beginning. At the beginning, I was just like experimenting with content, just trying to grow a personal brand. And then like eventually once I got big enough to like introduce my startup in some of my videos. But yeah, I think 2 weeks in, like posting a video a day, I think one of the advice he gave me was just try to be consistent. So I was just posting a video a day, didn't really get anywhere for 2 weeks. And then I think one of my videos, I was just like fooling around at the time, just like experimenting with different stuff to film. It was just a video of me typing fast, like typing on a keyboard, typing code on the screen. And that went like really viral, like to my surprise. Like I had no expectations. All my videos before that was only getting like 200 views. Like the max video was like 1,000 views. And this one out of nowhere just got like 300,000 views in like a week.
And so 2 weeks in, and the strategy you did was to post the content every day.
Yeah, just something every day. Wasn't related to my startup at all. It was just like something that I think would be like helpful, informative. Initially, I was just trying to explain like different tech concepts, like this is what like Cloudflare does to like help with encryption or whatever, like stuff, informative videos like that. And then interestingly, the video that went viral wasn't an informative video at all. It was just me fooling around on my keyboard trying to type fast, almost like showing off in a way, which I found really interesting. Yeah.
Very cool. So 2 weeks in, you pretty much randomly create a video of you typing fast.
Yeah.
And how many followers you had 2 weeks in, and how many followers you gained from that just one video?
Yeah, I was actually like browsing through my old screenshots, and I think I had like 17 followers before this video.
And that's a new Instagram page.
Yeah, this is like a new TikTok page. I was initially doing TikTok.
Okay. Very cool.
Yeah, it was like brand new. 2 videos. I was like, at that time, I had like 14 videos, and all of them just had like 200, 1,000 views, like 17 followers, 200 likes. And then that video went out, and I think a week later, it was up to like 3,000 followers or something like that, and like I think it was like 10,000, 20,000 likes, probably higher than that.
Wait, how many views on that video you got?
I think a week in after posting that video, like a week later, I think it got up to like 300,000 views in a week. I think now it's sitting around like 6 million, but like even before, I think it grew to like 1 million views in like 2 weeks.
1 million views in 2 weeks.
Yeah, which is crazy because like the video before that only had like 1,000 views. You know, it was just like out of nowhere.
So and the followers gained from that was 17 followers to.
Initially, in 1 week, it was like 17 followers to 1,000 followers, and in like a month, like it was that video and another video that went viral. But by the end of the month, I think I had like over 10,000, like 15,000 followers just from like basically 2 viral videos.
Insane.
Yeah.
Insane. 2 viral videos give them 17 to 15,000.
Yeah, like 17 like 0.0 to 15,000. You know, it's like a crazy amount.
That's a crazy number. And so you had the experience of like when going viral.
Yeah.
With that 2 videos, and did your video style like changed after that, or like what happened? What was the video content you posted before and after the experience, and what happened? How did your content like iterate?
Yeah. So initially, I focused a lot more on informative videos, like talking head videos, where it's just me filming myself, like just talking about some tech stuff, like a green screen effect in the background, maybe to like point to stuff to be helpful. And then after that typing video blew up, I realized that like actually it might actually be more useful to like create more entertaining videos that then lead into informative videos. Okay. So the idea was if I just posted a purely informational video, it wouldn't get that much reach because, you know, like people aren't as engaged with just like an informative video, like a purely technical one. But if I post something fun and like entertaining and engaging, like me typing fast, and then followed it up with an informative video, more people would end up seeing that video than if I just had posted like a video informative by itself.
What's an example? So you have some entertainment, like the first 5 seconds or something? Like, what is the example?
I think for me, it was 2 separate videos because when you do have a viral video, a lot of people will end up going to your profile and like checking out your other videos, and that in turn will boost the algorithm if it's like a good engaging video. Yeah. Like even if it's an informative video, it can still be engaging. And so like you have a bunch of people just visit your profile and like end up giving the other videos more reach and more views because of one viral video. And so my like sort of process with this was I'd post like a cool video, like me using the computer without using my mouse, right? Just using my keyboard. And that video went super viral. And then the next video would be like, this is how I did that. Like, this is how I use my computer without using my mouse.
Right. So it's 2 separate videos.
Yeah.
Entertainment, and then that helps you go viral. And
one's
informative. So it's not too informative and entertainment in one.
Yeah. I think when you try to mix it up, it becomes a bit hard because then it's like you have a group of viewers who are there to be entertained, and then they don't really get the full like value because you're trying to like inform them as well. And the people who are there trying to get informed, it's like you can't be as informed as you could be if you just focus on an entirely separate video, right? Because you also have to make these short. You don't have a lot of time in shorts. If it's too long, people won't be engaged. So it's really hard to fit like both of those concepts into one video. And usually it's better, at least for me in my experience, it's better if you separate those. Because then the viral video gets a lot of views, but the informative video itself also gets a lot of views. Obviously not as much as the entertaining one, but still a decent number of views.
Why not just go all entertainment? Like
yeah.
Is it goal? I mean, it depends on your goal. Actually, I didn't ask that, but like,
for sure. So I think initially, one of the like advice I was given by like my friend Anil was like to provide value to like the people I'm making videos for, like to the audience, right? So like making videos that aren't just entertainment, but like also like give them value and insights that they can learn from. That's how he got a lot of leads for his company, was because he was like creating videos about AI that like people in the AI space wanted to learn more about and follow him about. And so like when he ended up talking about something related to AI, like saying, hey, this is something I've been working on, my company's like doing AI as well, people will be much more willing to trust him because they've gotten a lot of value from his videos in terms of like knowledge and information. It's not just like some guy shit posting, right? Like it's some guy actually posting valuable content for them, which is why he builds a better, more trustable personal brand. And that was the initial goal of my videos as well. Like I didn't just want to be some guy who just was known for like doing cool keyboard fancy stuff, but didn't actually know how to program, right? So I also try to make videos about like more the technical concepts that programmers would individually understand. Because back then, my startup was a dev tool, so we were trying to market to programmers. So I want to build a brand around like being also like a really respected, not respect, but like a really good programmer as well, being helpful, like sharing tips about how you can be a better programmer, and generally like useful advice that the followers would get value from instead of just entertainment.
Yeah, totally. Because going viral is cool, but like if let's say your audience is not something that's like super valuable, right? Then you can't really like turn that into something like useful thing.
Exactly.
Business, right?
Right.
If you have like both, one is for viral, you get rich, and the other one is where you gain the audience, where it's like valuable.
Like the audience trusts you
and
as like
it
a
has
person.
respect for
Exactly.
for who you are, right?
Exactly.
What you do, and there's a high trust kind of relationship.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
And that's really smart. That's really good thinking actually, because like, I think a lot of people either like it's for entertainment or full on like tactical advice or like informational.
Yeah. I think it ultimately depends on what your goal is, right? Like for some people, their goal is to make money. I think if you're making money, you just want to maximize views, likes, and like reach. And at that point, you can just like full on focus on entertainment. But at the time, I was also focused on growing a personal brand with like people were like respecting what I have to say, so that when I do talk about my startup, it sounds less like promotion and more like genuinely trying to help other people like be a better developer because I'm building something for them, right? So that was my thought process at the time.
Cool. So going back to the first video going viral, what were your initial reactions like?
Yeah, it was super, super exciting. I think I remember like literally, I was like working my startup full time at the time. And like after that video was starting to go viral, I would just like see so many notifications. I would like check the app basically every like 10 minutes to see like the numbers like go up really quickly.
It's like your phone is basically going off.
Yeah. Well, I didn't have like notifications on for like the apps themselves, but like because I knew that they was going viral, I would like constantly check the app to see like the numbers go up and like see the chart go up. And it was like super, super exciting. I think honestly it got a bit distracting to the point where like I couldn't even focus on my own startup because it was just so exciting seeing this video like blow up out of nowhere. But yeah, it was like really thrilling and just like really cool to see that even though I had like no followers or like barely any followers and like not a lot of reach, that if you just post like one piece of good content or one piece of engaging content, that like the algorithm doesn't really care how many followers you have. Like you can start from 0 followers, like 17 followers, and get like a video that does super well if you just post a really good video. I think I found that really encouraging because initially I thought I'd like have to do this for a long time before I saw any sort of growth or like meaningful growth. But just seeing like a video in my like 14th video just do super well was just like super motivating, and to know that like I didn't have to like have done this for like a few years to be big. I could just like focus on making good content, and if the content's good, the algorithm will boost it to like an absurd amount of people, right? So that was like really exciting for me to see.
Yeah, that's on TikTok, or
that was on TikTok. This is all on TikTok initially, yeah.
Right, and then you slowly like put those content back to.
Yeah. I think my friend like recommended me that to just cross post across TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, and sometimes Twitter, although Twitter's a bit different. I think we'll talk about that later. But yeah, like Instagram and TikTok are pretty similar. So I just kind of cross posted on both of those. And like some videos will do really well on TikTok, but not on Instagram. And some videos will do really well on Instagram, but not on TikTok. So it's like, you kind of get the best of both worlds if you just cross post, because there's very little like friction, to be honest, to do that.
Yeah. And after posting for like 4 or 5 months now, right?
Yeah.
Have you seen patterns where when you make a content, you kind of can tell that which content is going to go viral? Or is there like a certain pattern that you're seeing?
Yeah, for sure. I think I've definitely like picked up on some patterns, but I wouldn't say I'm like super confident yet. I think I can generally tell when a video is like more exciting or like less exciting.
Yeah.
And I think I have a better sense of like knowing like approximately if a video is going to do well. But there's definitely been times where I thought a video was going to do well and does terribly. And when I like put out a video and I don't spend a lot of time on it and it does well and I'm like super unexpected, like wait, why did this do well? I only spent like 15 minutes on this video, right? So definitely not that good at predicting, but just I do have like a more sort of like better understanding. Like you can just like feel when you rewatch your video and just like feel that it's not going to do well or feel like it might do good, but can't really predict for sure.
What is your patterns you see right now? Like what, if let's say you have an idea, like what makes you think that okay, this might go well?
Yeah. I think one is just like it looks super cool, right? Okay. I think the one that I sort of expected to go viral, and it did, was the one of me coding blindfolded, where I put on a blindfold, put my split keyboard, had the screen facing the camera, and just like did something cool, like made a website basically from scratch while wearing a blindfold. Like I rewatched that video, I'm like, wait, this looks so cool. Like I look so much cooler than I thought I would look in this video. And just like when you see that, you're like, oh yeah, if I think I look cool, I'm sure that there's other people who's gonna like also feel that way. And you want to invoke some emotion when you like post a video. So like if someone's like super impressed by a video, they'll want to share with other people, right? So then it's like, if you feel that way where you want to share your own video with other people, then like you have a better, it's more likely to go viral because other people will also might want to share with others, right? So that's one of them. And then another one that I sort of like did not expect was when I started posting on Twitter. I don't post all my content on Twitter because I think a lot of them are like less like sort of like for Twitter in a sense. Like Twitter is very like tech heavy, so like people will actually like know what they're talking about on Twitter, whereas on Instagram and TikTok it's more just like general audience. Like if it looks cool, it looks cool, right? But on Twitter it's like they'll know if I'm bullshitting or they'll know if it's actually like fake, right? So it was interesting because I think I blew up on Twitter because people found my posts more controversial, where it's like I posted this as a joke where it's like, oh, good developers don't need to use a mouse. I don't even need to use a mouse plugged in. And I put like a sunglasses emoji and it looked kind of like, pretentious. Like it was all a joke. But then people on Twitter were like,
you're taking it too seriously.
Exactly. Took it so seriously. So they would like reply in the comments like, this guy isn't actually doing anything. Like this guy's using 1,000 keystrokes just to move 3 windows around. I can use it with a mouse like in a second, right? And then because Twitter like promotes or Twitter's algorithm based on replying, like the more likely people are to reply, the better it'll do.
That's good. You want to post controversial stuff.
Exactly. On Twitter, it's actually controversial posts tend to do better. So that was something I learned.
Because everyone in tech has an opinion. That's
exactly. Yeah. And Twitter is all about replies. And like, you're only going to reply to a video if you're like either angry or by it or like super impressed by it. And at least for my type of content where it's like short form and it's like me just doing cool stuff, people are more likely to be like angered by it because they're like more like show off rather than like a type of content where like you work on something for a month and showcase it. Like I think that is another extreme on Twitter where it's like super impressive stuff that you've done, but that takes a lot longer. And I don't have as much time to do that. So I post like these short form, like cool to watch videos that a lot of people on Twitter take way too seriously. And in turn does well because it's like controversial.
Are you going faster on Twitter now or?
Well, I still haven't cracked the Twitter algorithm, I think. I think like I'm trying to figure out like what's the right mix of like controversial versus like if it's too controversial, then people won't even interact with it because they know it's like too shitposty. So still trying to figure out like captioning videos and like how to even record them. I think videos on Twitter are a bit like more challenging as well. Like it's less common because Twitter's like mainly text, right? Whereas Instagram and TikTok are all videos. So like still trying to figure out like if I do post a video, how to make that video like more engaging to Twitter users.
Are you also experimenting with like YouTube Short?
Yeah, I have been cross-posting all my content on YouTube Shorts, but haven't been doing well. And my friend, like who's the AI TikToker, hasn't been doing well either. And I think it's because like the algorithm on YouTube is more biased towards like your growth on the platform or like your size on the platform. So if you have a lot of subscribers already, they'll be more likely to like promote shorts. Whereas I think it's harder for like if you're just starting out to like grow like organically. But that's my guess. I'm not sure if that's entirely true, but just based on what I've seen, like none of my shorts do super well. Like none of them go super viral, even though they go super viral on like Instagram or Twitter or Instagram and TikTok.
Yeah. So TikTok is actually famously for that focus a lot on the content rather than the creator.
Exactly. Yeah.
And Instagram can copy that
strategy. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, which is like super exciting if you're like somebody who wants to do like content creation, because like just knowing that you don't need any followers, you don't need to have been doing this for a year. If you make good, engaging content, the algorithm will show it to a lot of people. And so like you can just get started without any like necessarily like prepping or whatever. Just like put stuff out there, and if it's good, you'll see it grow. If it's not good, then you know what to do better.
Yeah. So in terms of audience, who are the people that watch your content?
Yeah. Initially, there's a lot of mainly developers, right? Because I was initially posting like informative videos, and like even the videos that went viral, they were always kind of like developers themed, like, oh, good developers don't need to use a mouse or something like that. Or like, this is what the fastest coder in the world looks like. But I think after like seeing like most people, like in Instagram, you get to see like what type of people follow you. And like I like will sometimes click through the profiles to see like what they're doing. And like a lot of times it's like random people, like musicians, artists or something. And I'm realizing that like nowadays it's not as much as about developers. It's like if you can just make content that looks cool or like even just like impressive to like non-technical people, those people will also be more inclined to like follow you because they think it looks cool. And like, the stereotypical like, oh wait, this is what a hacker in a movie looks like in real life. It's like not necessarily that's something that only developers understand. It's something that everyone understands. So now I'm trying to branch out to more than just developers. Which is a bit of like a conflict because I do want to post more informational content for like specifically about developers to like give them value. But at the same time, I don't want my content to be only viewable by developers. I want to also reach a broader audience as well. Okay. So it's sort of like this, sort of like figuring out like what the best way to do that is. I know some people will like make 2 separate channels, like one that's purely like information focused and one that's more like entertainment. But yeah, I'm still trying to figure that out as well.
I think it's cool. It's cool for non-developers to also get a sense of what, like when you post, like informational videos, right?
Yeah.
Non-developers can also get a sense of like what it's like.
Yeah.
Like, learning like these new things.
That's true.
Right?
Yeah.
And they came to put a content, but they stay for like information.
Oh, 100%. That's definitely something I've considered. I think I've like had trouble with doing that because there'll be topics I want to talk about that like are more valuable for developers if I go in depth. But then like if I go too in depth, then a general audience would not understand it. So I have to sort of like strike this balance between being general enough so that's watchable by like anybody, but also being like deep enough that it's like understandable by that's like useful to like app developers who are like in the field and already know about the general knowledge. So yeah, I don't have a great solution to that yet, but it's definitely something I've been considering when I'm like posting informational versus entertainment.
Yeah, in terms of that, definitely seen other developers. Oh, sorry, other creators.
Yeah,
like creating different, totally different channel. Just go to more in depth on certain topics.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
I think one of my things I'm planning on doing is I think YouTube is probably better for that because I'm like I've been thinking a bit and like I think for like informational content where you actually want to learn something, I don't think short form content is the best for that, right? Short form content is just about like entertaining mostly and like maybe a tiny tidbit of like some useful information, like a fun fact or like this cool tip. But like if you actually wanted to learn like deep knowledge or like learn like really useful stuff, I think that's where like a YouTube channel, especially for coding, because coding is like something that you actually have to spend a lot of time like explaining and doing. That might be better suited for a long form video. So like maybe in the future, I'm planning on starting like a YouTube channel where I'll go into more in depth about like how I make my videos or like the different tools or technologies that I use in my videos and like a more in depth about like how they work and what they do.
And you already have the cloud and the following, so it's actually much easier.
Yeah. Like I think one of the things I can do pretty easily is like direct a lot of people from these shorts to my YouTube channel, where it's like, you know, if you want to see more in depth about like how I did this or like want to know like, you know, if you want to do this yourself, like here's a link to my YouTube channel. And like here, I'll go into like a 10-minute video about how to explain it, right? I think that would be more useful than just like trying to make a 30-second video trying to summarize how I did everything, and where it's like not actually that useful, to be honest.
And cool. Do you still post content a day?
I do, yeah. So it's interesting because I think I took a break for a while. So I started posting in March, and then I stopped posting around May when I got my O1 visa to move to the US. And then also like when I was like moving to a different country, right? So I took a bit of a break. But yeah, in those 2 months, like I went from like 0 to like 30K on TikTok, 0 to like 15K on Instagram just by posting one a day. Took a bit of a break. And then I got back into it like just last month. Like, so I think a month and a half ago at this point, I started like posting a video a day again. And yeah, that's helped me grow from like 17K on Instagram to like 75K.
Oh,
and then
it was all in 1.5 months.
Yeah, that was all in 1.5 months. Like I literally took a break and didn't post anything for 2 months because I was like moving. And then I just got back into it, and just like a video a day just like keeps you consistent. Also like helps you like experiment and like post stuff that you otherwise normally wouldn't post if you were like hesitant about like, you know, like making necessarily good content. So like the video day has helped a lot with like recently, you know, a month and a half, I grew from like 17 to 75 and then also doubled on TikTok from 40 to 80K. So
how do you even post a video a day? Do you not run out of ideas to want to post? And sometimes when you're busy, how do you even post that?
Yeah, I think
that sounds so not trivial.
It is definitely hard. I think for me, the best way that I've been able to be consistent about it is just like not overthink it. Like if there is a day, and there has been a lot of days where I'm busy, then I'll just like throw something out there. I'll just like record a video of me typing or some shit, or like me doing a video of like some bad idea that I don't think is good, but I'll just post it anyways. Sometimes those videos actually do kind of well. There's one video where like I remember this distinctly this day where I'm like, shoot, I'm gonna be late to work. Like I haven't posted a video yet. It was like in the morning. I try to record a video every morning. Like I wake up at 6:30 and like I go to work at 9:30. So I have like a 3-hour period. But recently I've been like building up the studio in my basement. So I spent a lot of that time like just like actually like decorating my place because I needed to look better for some of my content. So that's like a sidetrack. But anyways, there was one day where like I spent all that time like building up my studio instead of filming to video. And then I only had like 15 minutes left. I'm just like, shoot, I don't have any time to like film anything good. I'm just going to put my phone on the tripod, take out my laptop, and just record me typing. Like literally. And then the caption was, I think like, this is like the world's fastest coder or some shit. Like it was just really lazy, really badly done video. And it looked terrible because I just like put up a tripod, didn't really care about like making it look good. And that video got like 1.2 million views on Instagram. And I'm just like, I spent so little time on this video. It was literally a rushed video. And I spent like way more time on like the video before that. That didn't get as much views. And I'm just like, really interesting to see, like, you don't have to necessarily like overthink it or overplan it to like make a video go viral. It's like, just like throw something out there, and sometimes you'll get like a response that you didn't expect. And like, you'll always learn from that. Especially when you're smaller, where the quality of your videos doesn't matter as much because, you know, you're still small, you're still like growing as like a creator. It's much more easy to just like experiment with a bunch of different videos and just throw something out there and just see what does well. Because when it does do well, you can like create variations of that content and like play around it instead of just trying to like explore all the time and just like getting nowhere, right? It's like when you do have something that hits, you want to like sort of pivot towards that and like build around that in a way before like it dies off. And like that's what I did with a lot of my videos, where like blindfolded videos, I'll like do that for a while and until like I see the views like dipping for like a lot of them, and then I'll just switch to something else and experiment. So like having that ability to just experiment by posting one video a day without having to overthink like, oh, I need to make this a viral video or I need to make this a high quality video when you're just starting out is like super helpful for just like getting into the flow and getting into the habit of like creating content.
And you mentioned a very key point, which is like consistency is actually more important than the quality of video. So like you're okay with compromising on the quality of video for consistency.
Yeah, I think when you're starting out, that's like super true. I'm like, I don't know if I would advise that if you're a bigger creator, because I think when you're bigger, like when you need like brands to sponsor you, they want to be sure that you're posting like consistently good videos. So like when you're bigger and that's one of your goals is like, you know, to get sponsorships, then you don't have as much opportunity to just like fool around and just like experiment with a bunch of different things. But when you're small, you should definitely take advantage of the fact that, you know, like you're still growing and that you have the ability to just like post a lot of stuff without worrying about like your like brand being necessarily like diluted because you're posting a lot of low quality stuff. I think when you're early on, like being consistent is like super valuable.
Well, that's a really good advice.
Yeah.
Yeah. And especially when I'm also just starting my podcast too. So.
Yeah. I know you had like a pretty ambitious goal, right? Like 15 podcasts in like 15 weeks or something, 50. That's good. Like having a goal to just like create as much content as possible. Cause I think you also learn a lot when you're actually doing it. You know, like I feel like content creation is not something that you can like really like study or read about. It's just you have to do it and get a feel for it to like get good at it. And the more you can post, the more you kind of get an intuition of like what posts do well, like what you should do, like what other creators are doing, instead of just like sitting there for like 3 hours just brainstorming ideas. Like I did that before. I have like a whole list of ideas, but I find that I barely even use them. Like I'll just come up with a new idea every day and just like in the spot and just like think that this is much more interesting to record than just like the ideas that I brainstorm for 3 hours. Like of course there's a few of them that are good, but like I think for the most part, just like being spontaneous and just creative and just like if you have an idea, just record it. It's like so much more like easy and like frictionless than to just like try to plan everything out in advance.
You're in the flow of it, right?
Yeah. Like when you just go down, I like go downstairs every morning. I'm having a cool idea. I'm just like, why not? Let's just record this, and like see how it does, right? Like having that mindset is so much more easy to maintain than having this mindset of like, I need to make sure every video does well. I need to like plan every video in advance. I need to like spend hours writing a script. I think that's just overkill, especially when you're just starting out.
Very interesting. What's your end game for your content? So let's say 3 years. If you do content for next 3 years. What's the sort of outcome you want to see?
Yeah, so I've done like a bit of thought about this. I don't have any strong sort of opinions on where it's gonna go. I think one thing that I initially did this for was, you know, I was doing a startup and I wanted this to be a platform where I can like share what I'm working on, get feedback. And I do want to start my own startup in the future. So I think having like an audience of like people that like trust you and like know you create valuable content is a good way to just kickstart that process in the future. Whenever I have a new startup idea, being able to share that with like thousands of people like out of the door would be super valuable. But I also think just building up the skill set, like right now, one of the main reasons I'm still doing it, even though I don't work for my own startup anymore, is because I think it makes me like a lot better at just like getting attention. I think that's a huge skill to have, right? Being able to create something that people want to watch is like a super valuable asset, especially the way I've been thinking about it is as AI right now makes programming more like commoditized, where it's like it's not as hard to create good software as it is to like, you know, create good content. The content creators will get like I'll have a lot more advantage in terms of like distribution instead of like programmers, like because AI can automate a lot of that. I think ultimately content creation is about serving like other people, where you want people to view it, right? And so you have to like be really good at like communicating to people through your content, and that's a huge valuable skill to have in like all other facets of like a startup as well. You're not just like programming code. You're like going to be talking to people in sales. You're going to be marketing. You're going to be like, you know, hiring. And the more you can like emphasize and like create stuff that other people want to see and engage with, I think you just get better overall at just like doing the more like non-technical roles of like a startup, which is what I will eventually want to do. So not necessarily an end game, but one of the things I'm building towards is just having this content creation be a way for me to like build up the skills I need to become a really good founder. Like not just marketing, but also just being able to like create something and understand what people want to watch and want to engage with and what people want like to see from somebody. Right.
I really like the mindset because I think a lot of people, when they start something, they always think about, okay, what's the outcome?
Yeah.
What's the, you know, if this is going to make me rich? Or make me famous. And they start thinking about outcome before they even started. And I think a big part of it is not about the actual outcome. It's the what doing this thing will make you into, right? Like, for example, if let's say if you do content creation for like a year and it didn't go anywhere, but at least at the very least, you are able to train, you know, your communication skill, your editing skill, you're basically become like a improve as a person. Even though like the content you create didn't go as viral as you wanted.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's one of the reasons why actually right now with my content, I don't take sponsorships or partnerships with any company because I don't want the idea of money to sort of like pollute my goal with just like creating content for like just becoming a better person or better building up a skill, right? I think if I add money to the mix, then I'll end up like focusing on like, oh, how can I make as much money for my content as possible? Which I feel just like ruins the goal of like trying to build it up as a skill that you would find valuable in other assets in the future, other facets in the future. And yeah, I think like for those soft skills, I think one of the biggest soft skills that I've had with content creation was actually something that was kind of unexpected for me. I think like if you talked to me like a year or two ago, like I would I was like a huge introvert, right? I did not like talking to people. I was like a coder in my mom's basement, didn't go to university, didn't have that many like people I could like really hang around with because all of them in high school went to university. So I was just stuck in Canada as well, couldn't get a visa in my mom's basement just coding alone, right? Like I was super introverted, not really good at talking to people and didn't have a lot of self-confidence. But I think now with content, it's like now that I'm putting out myself out there and just like seeing people like watch my things and like feeling like I'm just not like another 1 in 8 billion people, but like that I have much more of an impact on others than I initially had like 2 years ago is like really it's like a really cool thing to feel. It like makes me a lot more self-confident. It makes me a lot more like confident talking to people because I feel like I do have like a something cool that I did instead of just being like, oh, I just coded in my mom's basement like all day, right? Like just being, I feel like a more interesting person through my content. And I think that's sort of like made its way towards like how I talk to others and in terms of like how I feel as a person. Like I'm like a lot more happy as well. Like I think it's really cool. I really enjoy making content. Like every morning when I go downstairs to my studio, I'm like I can see myself like smiling. It's just like all these other like soft skills, not necessarily a skill, but just like just makes you feel like a lot more like better. I think that's like something that's like undervalued as well. Like if you really enjoy making content, then that's like itself something to care about and like to work towards as well. So I think that's one of the things that I've really like liked about making content.
Man, I love that so much. I love that so much. And like you grew so much the past 2 years. Like you were from this coder in your mom's basement, becoming a founder, getting your O1, coming to the US, right? And now you know like a founding engineer at a startup and a rising tech creator. All happened in 2 years. That's like dude, that's crazy.
I can't believe it's only been 2 years to be honest. I think there's just so much that's happened. It feels like it should have taken a lot longer, or it feels like it should have been a lot longer. But yeah, just like so much has happened in the past 2 years. It feels like not that much time.
Yeah, it shows that like growth is really non-linear, right? You know, so
yeah,
like,
for sure.
sometimes everything can keep you at one side in a very short period.
Yeah.
Which is why there's a lesson. Don't give up.
Yeah, for sure. Like you never know. Like literally, I distinctly remember back in January, like this was I think half a year after I like graduated high school and decided to take a gap year. Like my parents had this talk with me where they're like telling me, you know, like so you're working on the startup, right? And it's like going nowhere because back then it wasn't going anywhere. We're still working on this marketplace, and like we're trying to get mentors, but it was basically just me on a video call, just helping people for like $10 an hour, basically. So yeah, they were like talking to me like, you know, do you really think like that much? Like, be honest with yourself. Like they weren't trying to discourage me. They were just trying to like get me to like really like understand like my situation and be honest with myself. And so they're like telling me like, where do you think you're gonna go? And like it was half a year. Like you have half a year again before I have to reapply to college. It's like,
where do you think you did the marketplace for half a year?
I did the marketplace idea for half a year. Yeah. It was 6 months. It was a brutal 6 months, but basically
with $10 an hour. Right?
Basically, yeah, we only got like $500 in the end, and I don't even know where the money went. But they were just like asking me like, where do you think you're gonna be like in half a year? Like, do you really think you can grow this? Like, what is the best outcome for you? Like, if you grew this like double the amount of people on this platform, like, do you really think it's gonna be like how big of a difference do you think it's gonna make? Right? And I was starting to realize like actually like I was half a year in, I didn't make like I was making barely any progress, and like both of my co-founders, I think they were still in school at the time, so they were kind of like almost like burned out from this project, and so it was like really like kind of.
Wait, so you were the only one full time?
Basically, yeah, I was the only one full time. Both my co-founders were in Hopkins. Like nothing against them. Obviously, they have school, and they're not going to drop out of school if it's just like a marketing, like a marketplace that has no customers, right? So yeah, like it was kind of eye opening to see, just like in terms of like how much I expected the beginning of the year to like grow really fast because you know it's like oh, it's a gap year. I can do so much in a year, but like half a year passes by, I'm like realizing it's a lot harder to grow a startup than it is, right? And I actually convinced my parents to like let me move to the US to work with them in person. Like this is back then before we like raised any money or had any customers. So like it was like it was perfectly legal. I didn't make any money, so it's like fine. And then basically I was like working with them in person. I bought an apartment in like near Johns Hopkins. I rented a place and like would work with my co-founder in person. And that's when we started pivoting to this idea. And then that's when it started taking off, where it's like, oh, we pivoted to this new idea. Wait, this new idea sounds super cool. We applied to a bunch of accelerators and then we got in, right? Like if you asked me a month before that, I would thought this would have went nowhere, right? But just like not giving up on myself, like making the jump to like convince my parents, let me go in person, let me try even harder. Like even though it's been 6 months and I got nowhere, let me try harder. Let me like move to the US and like work with him in person and see where it goes. Like because I have nothing to lose. And then that's when things started picking up and gaining steam. And that's when we got to Neo, and that's where like history like
You just like one play out and the other one.
Yeah, exactly. Like if I had given up at that point, I think I would not have like obviously like been in the situation I am. I think it's like even when things get hard and things don't seem like they're getting anywhere, like try harder and like sometimes it'll work out. Yeah.
Damn, that's crazy. It's also crazy that you're only.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I've. It's weird because I feel like everyone in San Francisco is like super young, so I don't feel that young anymore. I think back in Neo, I was like, I was 19 when I got to Neo, and like I was like the youngest in the Accelerator that batch, and it was like super weird just seeing myself like that young, and everyone else is like experienced in the work industry. They've worked at real jobs. I'm still at that point never had a real job even. So it's just like really funny to see. But I feel like in SF, a lot more people are like in my situation, are similar to my situation, where they're still very young, trying to figure out things and doing a lot of cool shit while they're young. It's like super inspiring to see.
All right, let's change topic a little bit.
Sure.
I wanted to get kind of your view on this rise of this tech creator niche, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think just very recently, the past 1 or 2 years, you've seen multiple tech creators that are making tech-related entertainment content. So one famous one, it's called Socially Inept. Right?
Yes.
I think they grew to 1 million followers on Instagram.
Yeah, almost.
And they started 6 years ago, but the real growth only happened like 1 or 2 years.
Yeah.
In the past like 1 or 2 years. And then they also started selling tickets for their stand-up comedy.
Yeah. Tech Road Show.
It's called Tech Road Show.
Yeah.
All over the world. They were in like India, all over the US, right? Seattle, New York, LA,
they're like really big.
San Francisco, obviously. Right, and they're selling tickets ranging from $50 to $120, and all they did is just tech-related entertainment. Tech-related,
like kind of like stereotyping like the tech bro culture. It's like really interesting because it's so like relatable. So like a lot of people like resonate with it and find it really funny.
And then there's also another creator called the European Kid.
I think it's My Tech CEO. Yeah,
My Tech CEO. Yeah, and also grew to like 1 million followers on Instagram, and he also started a little over a year ago. And then there's, I don't know if you know this guy called Joma Tech.
I've heard of him.
You heard of him? Yeah, I watched his content like back in like 2020.
He was really big on YouTube, right?
Yeah, he was really big on YouTube. I think it was him and like this guy called
Tech Lead.
Yeah, Tech. Tech Lead.
Yeah,
both kind of pioneered this like tech related entertainment content, right? And it's not the usual tech content about like the tech industry. It's like entertainment media or like comedy. Right? That is like tech related, and it's super interesting. What do you think? What factors do you believe are driving this like rapid growth of like tech related entertainment?
Yeah, so I think one of the things I've heard is that there is a lot more emphasis that companies and brands are putting on sort of like influencers recently, especially the fast growing AI ones, the tech ones. And so there's a lot more attention like to be sort of like gained in like that space where like there's a lot of people in tech who like watch content, right? Because like I feel like everyone like, will like have Instagram or TikTok, or like not everyone, but like a majority of people will just browse content. And so like companies want to also get their name awareness like in front of these people as well, the brand awareness. And so this rise of like tech content is so much more like niche and engaging to a certain set of audiences that would be like more like resonate more with sort of like these fast growing tech startups or AI startups in a way that like general like marketing campaigns wouldn't be able to, right? So I think like for these specific tech content creators, the growth, I think one thing that's driving it is just like the sort of like more focus that these brands and companies are putting on like influencer space or like the like marketing campaigns through these social media platforms instead of just like billboard ads or like general like before how people would do marketing and like click through ads. I think it's a lot more targeted and like branded content that like hits a different like niche, like a more specific niche, because as a programmer I would much more relate to like a tech creator than I would to just like a general purpose like influencer, right? And so just having your content like be like related to these people that you have more trust in as a tech like creator, your audience is like more trusting of you and like engages with you more than just like an average influencer. Like these brands and companies having like more wanting to have more attention in that space is one drive factor, I think.
Right, just because brands started noticing that like sponsoring this type of creators actually drive more ROI.
Yeah, it's like more relatable, like they trust these creators, or like they feel more personally connected with these creators because they post content that's specific to their niche, right? Like, they make fun of like people that they probably know in real life, like, the tech bro, like the CEO stereotype. Like these people are like all people that people in tech can relate to. And so like they're more engaged with that content, and thus like, if a brand is associated with their content, they'll be much more inclined to like check it out because they feel much more personally like attached to those type of creators.
And it's not easy to become that because like you need to know about the tech industry.
Yeah.
You need to be funny. And like a lot of them are actually previously working tech, like they're software engineers themselves, so they can actually relate, like create like software engineering or developer related content. So it's like a lot of them like kind of like it's very similar to you, right? Like who is like a software engineer as a background and then pick up all these skills create
it's like the intersection of all these different like skills that like make it super unique. The intersection of comedy, tech, and just like experience that just makes it so much more like engaging and relatable to like the tech person compared to like other people who might try to do something similar.
So for anyone out there who is like looking to become or create their own version of like tech content, or I don't know, tech entertainment content, what advice would you give them?
I generally don't like giving advice too much because I feel like I'm also sort of like learning as I go. But I think one of the things that I found the most useful is experimentation, just like being consistent with experimenting, right? Like posting a video a day is like something that's kind of low effort if you don't like put too much like emphasis on making quality content. It's something that you can do and just like a habit you can build. And like when you do that, like you'll eventually like hit something that does better. You'll like learn what doesn't do well. And because these like platforms are very much about like if you make good content, you'll blow up instead of just like having to build a follower over time. Like you can learn a lot in a short amount of time just like posting something every day. So being consistent is like something that I've also seen a lot of other like content creators give advice about. Is like when you're starting out, just be consistent and just focus on that. Don't overthink how many likes you get. Don't overthink how many views you get. Just post something every day and like see what hits, see what doesn't. So that's one thing that I found very useful for me. Another thing that I found is kind of specific like to me in a sense, but something that you might also sort of have is like a unique skill that you have that sort of other people don't. I think one thing for me was I can type really fast, right? And I think that made for very engaging content. And I think for like other people, like for example, my tech CEO, like he's very like funny. He has a personality. He's very funny. And I think his other channel, like the European kid, he had this talk at Build Space where he said like he was really good at making accents, and so like he could like fake an accent to be this persona online that would like be very like engaging because it's like really funny, right? It's like really niche skills like that. If you have one of those, and you probably do, but that you might not know, like be good for engaging content. Like try to lean into that, like something that unique that you provide, so you kind of stand out from like the rest of the creators, right? Like I don't think there's that many like fast coder videos. Like I sort of like carved out that niche for myself, and now I'm like sort of known as like the guy who types really fast and his code really fast, or the guy who types code blindfolded or something like that. Like having a persona like that makes you much more memorable if you have this unique skill that you can like sort of incorporate into your videos that other people would not have. So that's something that you might have that would be helpful for like trying to like grow from like zero, if you can like carve out a sort of brand for yourself that way. And like I think the advice I've seen other people give as well in terms of when you're starting out is to kind of follow a bunch of other content creators in your space and see what they're posting, see what videos of theirs goes viral, and try to create your own variation of them, right? Like obviously don't copy it directly, but like seeing like other people's videos, what trends are going on, and trying to like grow and ride the wave on top of that is also like a really good like way to move fast. I haven't been doing that personally myself. I feel like I need to do a lot more of that because interestingly enough, I don't actually watch a lot of content, which is really funny, right? Because initially I thought I have to be online on Instagram and TikTok to like even make videos that go viral, but you don't even need to. Like I kind of was really against social media early on because I found it distracting, but it's really funny that I can just like go on social media even though I don't use it and just post something that's seen by a lot of people.
Because you figure out a kind of unique skills that you have that could be content worthy.
Yeah, for sure. Like I didn't even know it was content worthy, right? I was just like playing around, and just one day I decided, hey, wouldn't it be funny if I just recorded a video of me typing fast, like, and see how that does? And that's sort of how I found out, right? So definitely like something like that is super useful for like growing. And like those are the kind of things I've heard.
Interesting. I think man, from my personal experience, like finding like what the unique thing about you is like could be pretty challenging. Right?
Yeah, like you don't always know it in advance, right? Like I had no idea that me typing fast would make into a video with like 9 million views, but it's just like something you discover just by trying different things out, right? Like if you just kind of like try everything, you'll eventually like, have something where like you do differently than other people, right? Because like everyone's unique in their own way. And so if you just like don't kind of like hold yourself back and just posting content, you will be more likely to just stumble across something that you are unique at, that you have a unique intersection or experience or like connections around, and be able to like create content around that and sort of carve out your own identity.
Super interesting. Cool. Thank you for coming to the pod.
Yeah, thank you for having me on. It was a great conversation. Loved it.
Awesome.